Hello and welcome everybody to Be the Wellness Podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert, your hosts of this podcast.
Back at it this week. We accidentally took a week off.
It wasn't an accident.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Oh.
That was.
We purposefully took a week off.
It's our finely curated schedule.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we're developing some scarcity.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But it was a very well thought out planned thing.
Yeah.
But we are really excited to be back with you. We had an amazing week off, actually, where we got to go and spend some time in New Orleans and go to our very first Jazz Fest.
Yes.
Which was epic.
Yeah. And in reality, we spent like an hour and a half at actual Jazz Fest.
Yes, actually, yeah, on the fairgrounds at the site itself.
Yeah.
And Jazz Fest is really a complex beast, meaning that you can either attend the event at the fairgrounds itself, which is, tons of stages and tons of tents and all kinds of events going on there over the course of a 5-day period each weekend, 2 weekends in a row. And in addition, if you prefer, right. And many people do this, you can go to what they call the late nights, which are all of the, late night shows that happen in the bars and the clubs around New Orleans in the French Quarter and on Frenchman Street and, Bourbon Street and that whole area. So it is like a jam-packed musical mayhem extravaganza.
Musical mayhem extravaganza.
Right?
Yeah, that's about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as you can tell, I lost my voice a bit because I did a lot of woo.
Yeah, there was a lot of screaming.
And towards the end, every time, someone asked me to scream at the stage for something, I'm like, I got nothing. I've left it all on the table.
Yeah. I'm going to open my mouth and make it look like something's happening.
Exactly.
But don't expect much.
I'll put my hands up in the air, no problem. But so it was really, really fun. My cousin has been going for about 10 years and finally got us out there. And man, we've been missing out.
Yeah, we have. Well, so this is the thing. It's like both of us like just about all music except for jazz.
Yes.
Like it's like the one thing that we're like, God, it's like I can appreciate the talent of the musicians, but I just don't like jazz.
Yeah.
Turns out Jazz Fest isn't about jazz.
Right.
I mean, there's plenty of jazz to be had. Don't get me wrong, but it's not.
And the foundations are there. Like you can definitely feel the influence and the foundation of jazz influencing what's going on there. But I mean, really what it comes down to is it's just some of the best performance artists and musicians in the world coming together. And, obviously the festival itself has an awesome lineup and you can see all kinds of great bands in sort of a more traditional structured form. But what happens at the late nights is a lot of times different players from different bands will partner up and just do a set of, whatever. And it'll just be kind of like a one-time thing that you hear only there and in that experience. And, the crowd comes with such enthusiasm and such love for music, and you just feel the players feeding off of it. And it is just a spectacular circular reference of awesomeness going round and round as people are just feeding off of each other, the energy, the music. It's just really, really fun and spectacular.
Yeah, it really is. It's definitely something to put on the list.
For sure.
Of things to go and do.
Yes.
And I've always said it New Orleans. New Orleans?
Nolans.
But so some of them say it Nolans and some of them say it New Orleans.
Right.
Like very specifically Orleans, so there's a lot of ways to say it.
Yeah.
But that town showed up. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. And I'm writing a blog post about it, actually, because it's a fairly overwhelming experience to navigate for your first time. And so I think that was actually what kind of kept us at bay for a few years, was just like overwhelm of how to game it. So I'll be pushing that out. If you're not on our mailing list, make sure you go to our website and join or watch for it on Instagram. But it really is worth a go. And we didn't even talk about the food.
Yeah,
I mean, the food is redonkulous.
Yeah.
It is so, so good.
Yeah. It's one of those things, too. It's like, because we've been to New Orleans once before for Mardi Gras.
Right.
And weren't impressed with the food. Everybody's like, oh my God, the food in New Orleans is amazing.
Yes.
And they're like, I don't know, like we didn't really come across it. And I think what it comes down to is that there's, just like everybody has a palate.
Right.
There's like really quote unquote tasty food to be had there. on the entire spectrum of quality.
Right.
And when we went the first time around, we didn't nail the quality piece, and this time we did. So we found really good, like fresh, current, as healthy as you can takes on Southern food.
On some of the traditional dishes.
Some of the traditional stuff. And it was spectacular.
It was a completely different experience than what we'd had before. And a lot of it, because we were there the first time for Mardi Gras, we couldn't get into places. And actually, logistically, it's super challenging to get around the city because a lot of streets are blocked off. So you end up being sort of sectioned off in a quarter of the city that you'll just have to eat and you'll have to find something there because you literally can't cross streets for hours at a time, certain days of the week.
Right.
So there was some kind of logistical restrictions for us as well. But don't worry out there. I'm actually writing another blog on the restaurants we went to because I was so impressed.
Yeah.
And that was really something that made a huge difference in our trip this time. So
totally.
Watch for that stuff coming out in the next week or so. But because I really wanted to share it. It's like really good, helpful stuff. And if you're going to go, you might as well eat like a boss.
Yeah.
And listen to music like a boss.
All the things like bosses.
And that's what we did.
Yeah, and you can Uber around like a boss.
Yes.
Which is cool.
Yes.
Yeah, because the reality is like the food is there all the time.
Yes.
So even if you don't go for Jazz Fest, if you happen to be in New O for one reason or the other, like hit up some of these restaurants because it's good.
It's good. Yes, absolutely. So that was our last week and wanted to catch you guys up on where we were and hopefully...
What the hell the Lamberts are doing.
Where the hell are you and what the hell are you doing? And hopefully you guys missed us at least a little bit. But we are back.
Yes.
With a super exciting, super spectacular episode that I'm really excited about.
Yeah. Vanessa's current girl crush.
I have such a girl crush because I think Emily Schromm is just the coolest. And, there's a lot of people in this fitness, wellness, health space. And I just really love her authenticity. I really feel like she is who she is. She's raw. She's authentic. She's unabashedly herself. And I just really respect that and really resonate and gravitate to who she is. And so I was super excited to have her on the show and finally connect with her in person because we talk about spirit animals, but she's actually my spirit animal. So it was really exciting to have her on the podcast. If you're not familiar with Emily, she is a nutritional therapist. She's a coach. She is also the host of the Meathead Hippie podcast. And what's really cool about her podcast is it really walks the line between, full hippie concepts and, talking about tarot cards and, spiritual, guided meditation and, psychic readings and all that kind of fun hippie shit that I love. And she also has a very methodical training methodology and a really intelligent philosophy when it comes to managing physiology and helping people coach and understand and how to master their own physiology.
Yes.
So she's like all the things.
Yeah, she's a pretty solid combination of you and I.
She's actually you and I, Totally.
Totally. It's and which is great. She's also a serial entrepreneur and she's just crushing it. She's doing super cool stuff, and I think I don't spend a lot of time on Instagram. Like I'm just not much of an Instagrammer, but I follow her, and I'm routinely impressed by the things that I see come up. It's like they're clever,
got the
they're
Adam
thoughtful.
Lambert star of approval.
I know,
It's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm not good at that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But I'm impressed. So if you are if you're a super selective Instagram follower like I am, I suggest you go and follow M. Schromm.
Yes, she's awesome. And we loved getting to know her. We are also super excited because we are going to be giving away one of Emily's M packs on our Instagram this week, which is super cool. If you haven't heard about this, it's a multifunctional weight training backpack that Emily actually designed herself. And it's really cool because, it's a backpack in essence. You can take it and use it to go from A to B, but it also has the ability to add it has these water bladders that allow you to add weight so that you can actually make it like a sandbag or like a rucksack and you can actually, use it in your fitness routine.
Yeah, totally. And it's got handles and stuff on it to, facilitate all that action.
Yes. It is super well designed. And it looks awesome.
Yeah.
Most importantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, secondarily to it actually being worth
equally as
using.
importantly to me, equally as important.
Well, no, it's a big deal though, because I mean, especially when it comes to these sort of odd implement things, it's like you could just go get any old, duffel bag and throw some stuff in it and have an off balance odd implement.
Right.
But the reality is you're not going to use it.
Yes.
If it doesn't look cool, then the odds of it actually making it into rotation, when it's like, oh, I'm going to go to the park today and I'm going to take my M pack because it's got all the cool stuff in it. And then what if I want to grab a workout? If it's just kind of a junky looking army bag, you're probably not going to do it.
Yeah.
But if it looks super cool and then it has the water bladders and everything in there that are empty and you take them to the park, you fill them up with water, you do your workout, you empty them back out, probably on a plant or something.
Of course, on a plant.
And then, it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, it's really well designed. It looks good. And we're super excited to be giving away one of those on our Instagram. So make sure you go to Be The Wellness on Instagram and watch for that giveaway. So we are super excited to get to this awesome, beautiful, loving, connected, really special conversation that we had. And without further ado, here is the lovely Emily Schromm.
And we're live. Welcome to the podcast, Emily.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, it's so exciting to finally connect with you in person. And, I was saying to you before we went live that I feel like I could sit and talk with you for hours and hours because you have just such this like soul sister quality about you. But then I realized that probably most women who hear you and, come across you feel that way. And it's what really makes you unique and special. And I think what just really makes you connect so well with people. And so I'm curious, when I want to kind of kick off with this, did you always have that sort of open vulnerability about you or that open, sense of willingness to share and be with people? Or is this something that you've really worked on creating in your life?
Oh my goodness. That intro is so nice. What a way to make me feel welcome. Thank you for that. So,
of course.
I think the first two things, when I was a kid, I was like the 3-year-old that wanted to make everyone smile, so I've always been an empath. I'm always somebody that will put people first. And so that's a trait that I've learned, as much as it's a blessing, there has to be those boundaries and there has to be work that goes into keeping it in a place that it can be as wonderful as it is, right? The giving of yourself, it has to also have receiving on the other end of it, or you just run out of steam very quickly. So there's always been this balance of wanting to give and wanting to make people happy. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram 7, but as a 7, like I care so much more about making people feel good. Like, let's just be happy and let's not worry about it. And that just comes from how I grew up and the situation I was always in. I wanted to be like the light. And I didn't realize that until taking the Enneagram test of like, oh, wow, I thought this was just my personality, but it really is some of my coping skills as well, which it was really good to unpack, whatever number you are, whatever personality you are, just understanding there's so much more than just I am the way I am. But it really opened up, I think, it wasn't that I shared things until reality TV. It was reality television that was kind of like the cement that cracked open the egg and it just all came out, and I hated it. I hated it so much. It was the hardest thing I ever have done. The way I always expressed myself growing up, even at a young age, was always writing. So I could always write poems, and that was my outlet. It was always giving my brain and my emotion and all the things I felt power through pen, which was always still secret into myself. And that really switched, when I accidentally got on the reality TV show I was on. It really,
I like that word, accidentally.
I'm not kidding you guys. Quite literally, I was working at Starbucks and someone came in. I was 20 years old. I had a great conversation with him. And the next thing I know, it was like a whirlwind. It was just like an interview right there. And it was just like, oh, this is a thing? Like, you literally you do reality TV? And I didn't even watch reality TV. I thought it was such a joke. And so for me to just say like, okay, well, I guess let's see what happens. And it turned into, okay, I guess I'm on the show. So it really did feel like an accident. But it was the most beautiful accident because I thought that I was the entertainment. But what I found out on the other side of it was that I was truly learning how to show the hardest parts of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always been like a turtle, right? Really hard outside, really sensitive inside. And when I would be brave enough to show the sensitive inside, it would resonate with so many people. And that's really where I was like, oh, this life is not for me. This is so much bigger than how I look on TV or what I'm saying on TV. This is about reaching people that have never seen themselves or related to somebody on a show before, or had never even thought that it was possible to be who they are because it never matched up with what they saw. And so that was my shift of that's my duty. I am here on this earth to just be me, whatever that is. I have to listen to it. If it calls me, I got to do it. And sometimes it's amazing and it's the best life ever. And sometimes it's, oh my God, this is so hard. But I know every time I do it, it always resonates. And so I just got to keep doing it, even, and I think you guys can relate to that too. It's like, if this calls me, if I follow through with it, you don't know what's going to come of it, but it always is good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, honestly, and it's so cool because I think in this entrepreneur wellness world, like there's a lot of things tugging at you all the time, right? And there's a lot of shiny stuff. And so I think that it can be overwhelming at times to decide which of those rabbits to chase or which of those passions to go after. So I'm curious for you, obviously you wear a lot of hats, you've got a lot of plate spinning, all that good stuff. What's that process of deciding which of those things you really fall when you get an inspiration? What's sort of like your vetting system or like the process you go through that you say, okay, yes, I'm going to chase this one down. I really feel strongly connected to it, compared to, the fleeting, like thoughts of, oh, well, maybe this would be cool, but it doesn't quite land all the way. Do you have a vetting process for what stays and what goes?
Yeah. So I do collect every single idea that I have, and every business that I want to create is collected somewhere. I think there's power in writing it down and just seeing what it looks like on paper and getting it out of your head. And who knows, maybe in like 5 years, I'll revisit it and be like, oh, that was a good idea. I could do that, and I never want to forget them. I think of new business ideas every single day. So the process really is like, I'm not kidding you. It sounds like I'm belittling entrepreneurship, and I'm not at all, but, I've just launched my 5th company, and I love them all, and they take a lot of effort and a lot of work, but I'm so ready to launch 3 more. Like I already have them lined up, and they're kind of on the back burner, ready to go. And what I do is I say, well, like when you go into a store and you are not really intentionally shopping and you don't want to spend money, and then you see something, like you see this beautiful ring. It's like this turquoise silver ring. Like, oh my gosh, that ring is beautiful. And I've done this with shopping for a long time. I always leave the store, and then if I can't stop thinking about it, and if it shows up and I keep thinking about it for the next day or the day after, I go back and get it, because I'm like, this is something that keeps showing up. And so that's a very diluted example of what happens with the businesses that I want to create. This new idea I have, it's like, this would be such a good idea. And it has been such a good idea in my head for about a year. So it's been a long one of like, it's just the time, it's just the resources. And then it's so fun because when you really trust and you really let go and you realize like, yes, you have to put in the work and do the hours and be the creative and really execute, which is just part of being an entrepreneur. When you let go of like, you do the work, everything else will fall into place. The signs will show up for exactly the timing it needs to be. And I have learned like the things like, hey, I know this is what I want to do. And when it's the right time, just universe, I'm ready. Open the doors. And it's like the email will come and the right person will show up at the gym and say, hey, I have the ability to do XYZ. Do you know anybody that would want to use that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you were the one I was waiting for. And that's how it's worked for every business. It's so amazing because there's some that I definitely have resisted. Like I've really pushed through and I've really made happen maybe before they were ready, but it was all in its own time because the right people show up if you ask enough, and the cues from the universe, especially for the ideas that you want to pursue and that you can't stop thinking about, the tools start showing up randomly if it's supposed to happen. And that's just like, it blows my mind every single time. It keeps happening, and every time I'm like, that is crazy. But I don't know why. It's like, it's just, it is what it is. I should be used to it, but I'm never used to it because it's so
like
magical.
Surprise.
Yes, totally.
So, because I think that, like, fundamentally, I think what you're talking about is like the balance of making something happen versus letting it happen, right? And there's like this sort of give and take in there with every single thing that, I mean, well, it's everything, right? It's like, I mean, like dishes, I guess, is probably different. Like, they will just continue to pile up unless you make that happen. Like, you can't really just let dishes get done. Like, you got to do it. But a lot of things, that is the case. You just kind of have to make that happen. And so what the piece of this that I struggle with in sort of working my way through that balance is leaving space somehow to recognize when all the dominoes are lining up or when these things happen. And so, I mean, obviously you have that piece somewhat perfected, right? Because if you can point them out and just say, like you just articulated, that if you just wait and keep an eye out, they're going to show up. I'm wondering, like, if you have, like, how did you cultivate that? Or do you have a practice, like whether it's mindfulness or some sort of meditation practice that allows that space? And then, how did you develop such a keen eye for the opportunity?
Great question. And this is something I've also thought about so much because it's definitely transitioned in the last couple of years of it will happen when it's supposed to. Whereas before it was like, I will make this happen. Like nobody's going to stop me. So I've definitely done it both ways. And I think that that's, when it comes to the two sides of it, and it's in anything in life, but especially in business, if you can master it, we have one side, the masculine, right? The doing and the go, go, go. And the, dun, 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 dun. And it's what I'm really good at and what I've always been good at since I was a kid. It's just how I've operated. And then I've just learned like this the feminine side of I don't have to do, I can just be, and shit happens in a really big, powerful way. And so for me, it's just trial and error. And I think it really was this epiphany of, for example, when I launched my second company, it was the first product company I ever had. So it was a whole different world. It was a backpack turned weight training bag. There was lots of components, lots of prototyping, lots of trying to source and manufacture and dial in design and make sure that when I launched it on Kickstarter, it was almost close to getting there where I wanted it to be. And that process, it's like the dishes in the sink. Nobody's going to do that for you, right? That's
right.
It just has to happen. But it called me so much. It showed up so much. And I just knew like I had to do it. And it just was, there was no other option. It was like, this is an idea I have. There's no doubt. This has to come through. And I don't know where that came from, except just like any entrepreneur, anything that you're passionate about, if you believe in it enough and you quiet the noise, because the noise is loud, like, you shouldn't do that.
Oh, yeah.
We can't do that. Really? That's your idea? And then you'd get a couple noises of like, that's brilliant. And I'm like, that's what I have to latch onto and hold on to because I think it's brilliant. But if one other person thinks it's brilliant, that's great. So it was just a lot of grind, and then do. And it was successful. The Kickstarter was funded in 4 hours and it had that flow being state, but it took a lot of masculine energy to get it there. So I think it's saying, at what point do we still drive, do? There's got to be a point in any business where if I let it go and I click kickstart campaign start and I just see what happens. If I was still like, maybe it wasn't going to get funded and I was going, it's almost that meter of saying like, okay, I have to trust that maybe this wasn't the right idea. And then I realized like by the time I launched the gym, which was the most recent startup that I have here in Denver, it was like, I was just tired of grinding. I was just like, I don't actually have it in me with all these things that I'm juggling to keep doing that again. Like the dishes in the sink have to stay there because there's too many balls in the air. And so if it's going to happen, if I'm crazy enough to, on top of the 4 companies I have, launch another, it has to be beautiful and easy. And it was, I walked into the first space and I was like, this is totally it. And they let me sign the lease the next week. And then the build out was it was like, there's definitely
Mm-hmm.
work and but it wasn't work when you're so excited about it. It's like, yes, this is great. Let me pick those countertops. Let me pick these platforms. And that was the first full experience of I just did everything here with feminine energy. There was nothing masculine about it. So I know there's always going to be a mix and match of both. But I think I'm at the point where I had this vision, I say vision, I don't mean it like I went into a sweat lodge and like I'm a shaman, but
that kind of vision.
Yeah, just kind of
Glad you clarified, because our listeners would actually wonder.
Maybe in a year or two. I mean, I'm down, but
we'll get there. We'll get there.
I had this vision of, juggling these 5 balls, and each ball was a company, and I'm juggling, and I'm starting to sweat, and I'm starting to get tired, and I'm starting to like, what if I drop it? What if I drop it? Which becomes, I am now juggling and operating out of fear. I'm not being like, this is abundant. This is beautiful. These are wonderful. And I just took my hands and I stopped, and all the balls stayed in the air. And I realized I have lived my whole life thinking that I have to move my hands and I have to do and I have to do and I have to juggle. But if it's not meant to be, I can still be and hold that presence. And if they drop, they're supposed to. And I have to trust that. And that has radically shifted how I operate. It's been about 6 months, really, when seeing that gym kind of come to life in the way it did. I was like, oh shit, I can operate in a such better way. And I just need to tap into it every single day. So I do meditate, and that meditation has been very helpful to tap into it, especially when, the bad days get bad. It really does help me get back to that place.
I love it. It's so funny. I relate on so many levels. Adam and I meditate in the morning, and as soon as we're done, I say, I have an idea. And it's like his favorite part, because he's like, okay, we just finished meditating. Can we give like 5 more minutes before the ideas start? But, we run wellness retreats, and I've learned this very deeply through the process of leaving room for the magic. Like, you can do all the planning, you can do all the action, but like, if you try to control every piece of it, you don't actually you don't leave room for the magic to appear, the things that you didn't think about, or the things that you didn't create that, somehow make their way into the process. And so what I'm hearing from you is that you're learning to leave more room for that magic and for that energy to just have a life of its own.
Yeah. I mean, and I think I've always intuitively kind of let that happen in like a way of, I shouldn't be here on paper. I really shouldn't. 9 years of being in this industry, but being able to do what I've done and grow and be able to create things and then create more things. Like I have really understood I'm just a pawn, and I'm just like, okay, say yes to this and say yes to that. And the more I try to control things, the worse they get. So I definitely have been grateful for the ability to just be like, I'm going to say yes. If it feels right, I say yes. And that's actually, that's the first time I did that, was saying yes to reality TV. And that was 10 years ago. So it was kind of the shift of, I say yes if it feels good, and I say no if it feels bad, and something right will come from it. Whether it's hard or whether it's easy, it's supposed to be something I go through.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I think that's really good advice.
It's so simple too, right?
Well, it is.
Yeah.
And I think we tend to just overcomplicate things a lot. And which is actually a perfect segue into what I want to kind of pick your brain about a little bit is, on the strength and conditioning side of the spectrum, right? In the training continuum, there's a real tendency for coaches to overcomplicate that as well. And so I'm really curious, like how your transition, or how you started your athletic career, and then how that transitioned into the coach that you are now, and the training philosophies that exist in your world.
Yeah, it's so fun, because if I go through something, I learned really early on, like I have to go through it. It's the hero's journey, right? And then I can, I'm meant to teach. So more than anything, I more than an entrepreneur or a creator, I really am a teacher, and it's something I just love. It's my way of just connecting with humans one-on-one. It's just my favorite thing to do. And so for me, it was this kind of always struggling with body image, eating disorders, crash diets, pills, everything you could think of throughout college, especially after reality TV. And then finally watching myself on reality TV, realizing I had ran, true to Enneagram 7s, ran away from anything that I hated. So I ran away from everything after filming, and I just moved to Colorado, learned how to snowboard, was in Magic Land, and then again still looking in the mirror and hating what I saw. And I was like, I could run away from this my whole life, or I can actually empower myself to do something about it. And that was where this like superhero moment kind of tapped in. I realized how capable I felt in the gym, so I knew strength training was something I loved, and started with just working at 24-hour fitness and learning the basics through just NASM, learning to be a personal trainer. I found CrossFit by Googling it. Someone told me to Google it, and these girls started crying after a workout. And I'm like, this is amazing. I want to cry after a workout. I'm so bored with my workouts. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So I fully drank the Kool-Aid for a long time. Started coaching CrossFit, which I have left CrossFit, but I definitely, my coach, my mentor who brought me into it, the way with Olympic lifting and with powerlifting, I don't know if I would have ever tapped into it as much as I did without CrossFit. It was truly such a gift, 100%. Right? And
yeah, totally.
And then I just went, I went crazy. I wanted to compete. I competed all the time. It was never good enough. And it was go, 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 go. And I realized like my clients, I would pull in components of powerlifting and Olympic lifting and maybe a little bit of a diluted Metcon, but I never would train my clients what I was training. And that was when I started to see this divide of like, well, it can't be good for me if I'm not doing it for my clients, even skilled clients, but I kind of said, it's my personality. It keeps me engaged. And I had all these reasons of why I was doing it when ultimately it was just my ego. And my body finally told me, this is not for you. And it took quite a few injuries for me to finally listen. So that's when I realized, okay, I need something that's extreme. I need something that I'm a rebel tendency for Gretchen Rubin. Like I need something that when I do it and I show up, it's like, I'm not going to take a typical class. I don't want anything that just makes me feel good. It's like, I want to challenge myself. That's how I operate, which is why CrossFit was so great for me. And so I started really getting into the conjugate method with Louis Simmons and just understanding more programming on the other side of it. Like I had lived in this CrossFit world and this kind of randomized, but quote programmed for so long that I didn't understand true programming when it came to bodybuilding and strength training. And that just sucked me in. And so it also was a perfect in between for my adrenals when I was really tanked. I could do enough of the lifting that made me feel good and dialed in without taxing my central nervous system. And it just felt like this is it for me. I feel like I can check all the boxes in the way I need to, but not tax myself and know what those things are that tax me and when I need to kind of chill out. And that's really why the gym opened, was because I didn't have a place to do the training I was doing. And I was like, you know what, this is time for the gym. So that's the philosophy of platform strength and what we believe in. And it's just so fun to find that in between where I can now work out with people without headphones. But we can all kind of do the right thing for us, So it's a long journey, but so good.
Awesome. So awesome, because I feel like it's such a natural progression for people in the CrossFit world. And, we competed for a long time. We were some of the first CrossFitters with Rob Wolf and all this stuff back in the day. And it was just, I think this is a natural progression, but what you're finding is that there isn't sort of a like afterlife for CrossFit. A lot of times you're just sort of stuck going back to, normal gym land, or you're staying in the CrossFit culture, but it doesn't quite align anymore with where you're at. So I think it's so awesome that you're creating that natural sort of, okay, there's CrossFit and then what?
Yeah, 100%.
I really hope that you will open a gym in California, because I would really love that
Specifically
gym.
Venice Beach. Yeah.
In Venice Beach, if you're not busy and you want to open one more business.
I'm not kidding you. That's my end goal with platforms. So you just sit tight. It's on its way.
Atta girl. All right, we will wait. In the meantime, we will keep training in our side yard.
I love it.
So I love, there's so many things I want to talk about, but one of the things I really want to get to with you is you talked about meditation a little bit, and you've talked about the Enneagram, and you've talked about some of the things that have been influential for you and sort of coming to understand yourself. What have been some other things that tools or, classes or processes that you've gone through that have really enlightened, your sense of self and the connection to really knowing deeply who you are?
I've always been really into personality tests. And so, I didn't find good ones until kind of later on in life. And I think there's so many great ones. So for me, the first entry to it, outside of just kind of work quizzes and like the things you have to do as an employee back in the day, I went to a really hippy dippy store when I first moved to Denver. It was a few years. I mean, gosh, it was like, I guess it's been like 7 years. I just remember walking into the shop and I was like, this book is amazing. And I opened this book and I opened it up. It was Spirit Animal Guides by Stephen Farmer. And at first I was like, this is such a joke. Like, people don't have spirit animals. What is this? But I knew, I didn't know mine, but I knew my best friend growing up, she was always talking about polar bears. And I was like, if I look up polar bear and it's Hillary, I'm sold. So I looked it up and I read it and oh my God, I called her. She was crying. I was crying. I was like, holy shit, spirit animals are a real thing. And I didn't know mine. And it took me forever to find it. But when I found it, I read it and I just started weeping because I was like, this is how I operate. And I've always judged myself for being on the go and on the next one, and what can I do now? And I have to be outside and I don't do well in small places. And then I read The Hummingbird and it was exactly that. And I was like, I finally can feel less crazy. Like, it's kind of like when you are in health and wellness. And I say this for people with chocolate cravings, you feel so guilty about having chocolate cravings. Like, you are craving chocolate. It's kind of your habit, but you have it and you immediately feel bad about yourself. But what we can do is take a step back and say, well, let's get curious. Why do we have those chocolate cravings? And let's just check our magnesium levels. Let's check what foods we're eating that have chromium in them. And as soon as we supplement with magnesium and chromium, those chocolate cravings go away and you don't feel so crazy. And even if you don't supplement, at least you're like, oh, there's another thing between me and this chocolate. It's no longer, I am a bad person. It is just what it is. And so for me, the hummingbird, it was like, I'm not as crazy as I thought I was. Like, this is so nice. So it's just so powerful for me. I think, talking about spirit animals, when people order tea, every order comes with a spirit animal card that kind of like teaches them a little bit about themselves. And then it's just incorporated in everything I do. And so I guess spirit animals is number one for sure. The Enneagram.
So before you go further, I just want to stop you there because I'm so glad you went there. So what we were at a ceremony, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and we found a really beautiful deck of animal spirit cards at our friend's house. And so I went home and I purchased them. And oftentimes when we're doing podcasts in person, we'll open with offering people to draw their spirit card or to draw a spirit card and see how it relates to them, or, if it brings up anything that's going on for them in their life. So even though you're afar, I wonder if you would be open to me drawing one on behalf.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, cool. And we could just go full hippie here because
I love it. This is so good.
So, and you might even know these cards.
Is it the Wild Unknown?
No, they're actually Animal Spirits knowledge cards by Susan Seddon Boulay. And they're so beautiful. You should check them out. I'll send you a link to them.
I totally will.
Because the reason that I fell in love with them is the illustrations are just gorgeous. So
I love it.
Okay. So I'm going to shuffle and then you send your energy to me.
I'm sending it.
And when you are ready, you tell me and I will draw one.
Okay. Oh, this is so fun. This is the best podcast
She's
ever.
Even got her eyes closed.
I do too.
This is literally my favorite thing ever too. So I'm so excited.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, the parrot. This is a beautiful card too. I wish that you could see it.
You have to send me a picture.
Okay, so I'm going to read it to you. Yes, symbolism. Actually, symbolism, love, prophecy, verbosity and meditation. And it says the parrot has had a variety of symbolic meanings in different times and places. In pre-Columbian America, it was considered to be an oracle able to predict the weather. In Hinduism, it was an omen of love that carried Kama, the god of love, on its back. The Pueblo Indians considered the parrot a supernatural bird of the sun, an association that likely arose from its brightly colored plumage. Because of its incessant chatter and ability to imitate speech, the parrot has also been associated with foolishness and loquaciousness. Is that the right word?
That
Yeah. However, this talent for speech also deemed the bird an interlocutor. How do you say that word? This is a word I do not know. Interlocutor between the human and the spirit worlds. We're going to say that it's a medium between the human and the spirit world. So does anything for you resonate with that, with this particular time?
I mean, yes, I think when I think of growing up, I had 7 parakeets. That's a random fact because I wanted a parrot so badly, but they were too high maintenance and massive. So I just collected parakeets. And so I'm a huge bird person, although I can't have one because I have a cat.
So funny.
So it's, yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's, like discernment of speech. Like if I use it well, it's powerful, and but very easily can like turn that into like blah 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 blah, which we've all experienced, right? Like, oh my God, just shut up. So like, learning how to like be very conscious with my words because I know that they have weight to them, no matter what they are. And so when I don't feel like they matter, they do. And so yeah, that resonates very much.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And, I think that just thinking about also just the spirit of the parrot, right? Like they're almost like this observer, but then they just can't help but like interact. Like they're there in the space, but then they're like, wait, I have something to say too. Yeah. Which kind of just reminds me of you a little bit because obviously like you're just able to insert yourself into different places and different situations and just have like a piece of input or just like a way to interact with the situation that's uniquely your own. So I think it's totally spot on.
Yay. Thanks for doing that.
Yay. Yeah, no, it's so cool. I'm so excited. I had them sitting here and I was like, oh, maybe we'll get to that.
We did. Yes.
So thanks for making that segue happen. Yeah. So animal spirits, what else has been a big, sort of thing that you are able to lean into to find more connection with yourself?
So I work with a lot of really cool people in Denver. Luckily, I feel like there's just a plethora of them. So, there's a lot of really fun energy workers, whether it's just them doing tarot. I mean, there's been moments where I've like been in LA for a big event and I'm like, should I do this? And then Laura Mahoney will, I'll give her a call and she'll be like, okay, this is the card pulling up. So there's been like very moments of like, I just have to have another guide talk me through this. And there's lots of shamans in Denver that help me do that. But I personally really do pull tarot quite a bit, and I use a pendulum and I have my little altar, and so I'm full hippie when it comes to that.
You're full hippie. I love it. So hippie.
Yeah, I am. And I think it's just so fun because I know that I always know the right answer. But when you have a team and you have lots of people relying on you, it's kind of like the same noise that happens when you're on social media too much. Like you have this great idea and then all of a sudden you doubt and you're like, oh shoot. Like the more pressure there is, the less room there is to tap into intuition. And I think that that's something that it's like, we can take pressure and use it really well as long as I know I have that carved space where I can just like be quiet and everyone can go away and I can just the answer always comes, right? It's like, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And then it's like, Emily, just shut up and go on a walk, which is what I did Wednesday, right? I was like, I have to be in nature.
Perfect.
I have to get out and quiet everything and just be, because I'm not necessarily looking for ideas when I'm doing it. I'm not necessarily looking for answers, but when everything goes away, that's, as you guys know, that's when it starts to drop in.
Yeah, it all shows up. Like you give the subconscious machinery some time to kind of get through the backlog.
Yeah.
Like, this is the paper you were looking for right
Yes.
here. It just happened to be, it was one step away from the shredder. So I'm glad we went for this walk.
Yes, totally. Yes.
So I was listening to Tim Ferriss the other day, and he asked this question, and I thought it would be such a perfect question for you because as an empath, as someone who feels so much, I thought this would be an interesting thing to pose to you and see what if I don't know what comes up for you. But the question he had for his guest is, what are you unwilling to feel? Right?
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah,
I thought it was good too.
Yeah, my freedom and my independence is everything. So I refuse to feel constricted or restrained or stuck. Like being stuck, I refuse to do it. And I think that sometimes can be a flaw because that means that I'm like, oh, this feels bad. I'm going to go over here. But when I really sometimes have to just sit in it and feel it. But when I start to feel any sort of push that's just not comfortable, I'm out. Like I really, my space and my freedom and my ability to, and that's why I'm so lucky that I am my own boss, right? I've always been really bad with authority and really bad with people kind of telling me what to do. And I saw it as a flaw. And that's why I want to change that for kids so badly and making sure they don't feel like a failure when they have that kind of rebellious spirit, because when they allow it to just be, and I'm so grateful for parents that allowed me to just be that little rebel growing up, it can express into really big, amazing ideas that aren't conventionally, intelligent on paper. And I just feel so, I hope it's changing. It seems like it is with the opportunities that are coming for people that are graduating high school and having more kind of like the world is the oyster at their fingertips. It seems like that's shifting. But it's something that it took a long time for me to tap into without feeling bad about it. So I think it's that ability to just always be free, right? I'm just a bird creature, and I just gotta no cages. That's what comes up.
Be able to fly.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
What's your guys' answer?
It is a great question, right? Oh, I mean, honestly, it's funny. So my spirit animal, as much as I'm a water baby, is a horse, because that is very much the same thing. Like I do not like being contained. I have a wild spirit. I want to let's ride out. Yeah. Let's go. So I think, I think it's one of the reasons I really connect with your message and connect with what you say is that I think that there is just that wild child inside of me, and I do not like to be contained. I do not like to be told what to do. As Adam knows when he tries coaching me, and I'm like, don't tell me what to do.
Come coach me, don't tell me what to do.
Don't tell me what to do. Exactly. But yeah, I think I'm very much the same. I'm unwilling to feel contained or suppressed for sure. How about you, Adam?
Oh, that's interesting. I've never really thought about myself from this particular perspective, because it is a very, it's a very specific question. You know what I mean? It's not like, what do you like? What do you dislike? Like, what are you unwilling to feel?
Right.
That's tricky. But I think
it's deep.
It is
deep,
it
right?
is. And I'm trying to think of what the actual word is for it. But for me, it's I don't know if disrespected is the right word. That's kind of surface level, but that's really it. I can't abide that. It drives me bananas. It's not like I freak out on people. I demand your respect, but it drives a lot of what I do. I don't put forward content that I don't feel is valid because I can't be disrespected in the way that somebody's like, this is stupid. And that guy, you know what I mean? It's everything has to be thought out and planned and dialed so that I can buffer almost any argument against it. Yeah. Is me. And the more I'm saying it, I'm like, shit, this really is me. That's so I'll have to come up with a better word than disrespected, because I don't feel like that really fits, but it's something like that.
It's almost like validated or invalidated, maybe?
Yeah, something.
Somewhere in that
Well,
world.
I mean, it's when you're in a vulnerable position of putting out content and teaching and doing work that is good, it's making sure like I have always had this struggle with the amount of free content I offer. We got you, and you guys can relate to this, right? You have YouTube, podcasts, like you have all these channels, and then even on top of that, even though it's simple and it's such a necessity, social media, it's still so much effort. And I've realized there has to always be reciprocity, right? Like I have to know that at some point there's an end to what I'm going to give for free, or I'm going to burn out so quickly. Like I will resent because I don't feel respected. I don't feel like that, yes, this is free, but it also is so much effort, and I need to see that because I'm a words of affirmation love language, right? I need to know that this is being received and taken care of, and like is valued. And so I think it's that all ties into what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, one of the things I struggle with, and Adam and I are a really good balance in this way, because obviously he's very much more, he thinks things through, and he's very much more about like getting very factual information and referencing studies and really weighting the information, the factual literature and stuff. And sometimes, I'm more of a gut person, and I obviously appreciate the facts and allow those to weigh in. But when I know something, I feel like I just know it. And I get frustrated when people doubt my sense of knowing, and like doubt my sense of just the feeling of being sure about a certain thing. And so I wonder if you struggle with that and how you deal with that, when people question you and you don't really have, it's not like, with training, there's a methodology and there's kind of a proven system and you can sort of balance out why you're doing things. But if you're doing things more from a gut place, how do you talk to people about that? Or how do you enroll people in that process without feeling offended if they, don't necessarily see your point of view, so to speak?
Ooh, well, I mean, there is no option. If I have a gut instinct about something, which it's like, what do we do? That's what I need to do. That's how we need to change the website. Yeah. I need this. Okay, change this. If somebody argues with me or is like, why do you think that? I am open to hearing their side of it, but there's nobody that's going to deter me from it. That is why I am where I'm at, because for however many years, as soon as I felt something and I didn't know why, I just was like, yep, that's it. I can give you the example. This isn't quite as literal for business, but this house I just bought, I walked in, I had no desire to buy a house. I don't want to buy a house. I don't like commitment. I want to fly like a bird. For me, I walked into this house. It was just a random, this house might be available. And I walked in, I was like, this is definitely the house. I didn't even see the whole thing. And I was like, this is the house. So explaining it to my family was like, what are you doing? Are you sure, Emily? Are you sure you're even going to be in Denver in 2 years? And I couldn't even talk to them about it because I knew they would need an explanation that I wasn't even willing to think about myself. I just knew this has to happen. And if I wait, it's not going to happen. And if I give too much time and effort to people and explaining to people, it takes away from my ability to make it happen. And so the people on my team, they just get it in a way that they, if I need to explain it a little bit more, I will. And I give them room to give me their ideas, but they just know, like, if it's like, okay, track record proves it. And I have those people that if, there's a couple of people, especially at the gym and my partner, it's like, they know when I feel that way and I start to doubt it, like, gosh, I can't believe I'm buying this house. Why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? They are like, Emily, if you feel that way, you should do it. Like, look at this, look at X, look at Y, look at Z. Every time you think this way, it's meant to happen. So I don't even give room to anybody else that might suck energy and make me explain it, because those people, they just aren't going to get it. If they don't get it right away, they'll get it after it's executed and after it happens, and maybe in 5 years, but maybe never. And that's okay. Those aren't my people, but the people that are around me and in my circle, they get it and they know, and they have my back 100%, even when I'm like, oh shit, I just did what? Why did I just do that? But I just am such a believer. You have to, if you have an impulse, if you have a feeling, if you have this like little voice, for me, it sits right in my solar plexus. It's like, oop, yep, got to do it. That's it. Change it, fix it. Yep, got it. And then it's just like, bam, oh my God, that's perfect. And so it's just so cool when you really tap into that, what it can create.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, on so many levels, I think there's a real tendency for people to hand over their power to other people. When we're social creatures and we like feedback, and I think, not that sounding boards aren't a good idea, but there's so many times I can think of for me personally where I've thought about something. It's like Vanessa was saying, I'm a little bit more on the analytical side than her, and so we've had an idea, and I have thought about it for maybe months and running scenarios and going through the whole thing, and I've like finally got it shaped into this little idea packet, and then I like bounce it off one person, and they're like dumb, and I'm like, oh man, and you're like, they haven't thought about it at all. They put zero. This is just like a gut reaction, and I take it as the truth.
And it bursts your bubble so much. There's nothing worse than feeling excited about something and it not being received. And that's why I have to have, feedback is great, but I actually don't listen to a lot like books of self-development and business. And, as much as I love them and when I'm in the mood for them, I do, it's almost too much noise because I would rather, listen to just like something that doesn't even interfere with that because I know what's best. I truly know, and what's best. And if I give any power to somebody else to dictate, because we have love language of words of affirmation, or we want to feel like, hey, like help, like hype this up. Like I'm looking for you to make sure that this is good. But just like anything in our own ability to like look in the mirror and love what we see, if we turned around and someone said, you shouldn't wear those pants, does that change how I feel about myself? And I have to get to that point where it never does. And that's the work, right? That's like the hardest part of like, we want feedback and we want to be the best at what we do. And it takes a lot of collaboration to get there. But it's like when I fall asleep, I know that it's still meant to be. I know even if 10 people said it was a bad idea, I know that, you said it's a bad idea, but I'm going to make it pretty great. And I think that's that little competitiveness and like that little edge of like, underdog mentality. That's that masculine that comes out. And so it's just that, again, that balance of like, okay, well, if it's really supposed to happen, the signs will show up.
And even if it doesn't work out, especially like, or exactly how you intended it to, I know for me personally, I always feel like, but it still worked out. It still showed me the next steps. It still showed me the next place to go, or, it illuminated something I wouldn't have done otherwise. Do you feel like that too? Like, even if it doesn't work out exactly like you envisioned it, you're still like a glass half full kind of person?
Oh yeah, always. And I think, I'm learning that it's more of the feeling of, I don't know details. Like when I think of my future and I think of what I want and manifesting and, really just saying like, okay, this is where I'm at and I can celebrate that and I can be proud of it, but where do I want to go? It's not necessarily thinking of things. I've never really thought of this will be in place and this will be the number. And it's more of like the feeling of whatever it is that I want and grabbing onto the feeling more so than the material item that might be attached to it. And so then when you look at it that way, it's like, nothing matters if it turns out completely different, but I still have that feeling of pride and success and just, oh, this is awesome. Like I did this. Like that feeling can be anything, the details are just, they're irrelevant because I asked for that feeling. And so it showed up in a way that maybe I didn't originally intend, but I knew that was the feeling I was chasing and I got that feeling.
Awesome. So I have to ask because it just keeps popping into my brain. So I'm just recognizing that it must be there for a reason. And one of the things that has made a profound impact for me and for Adam is doing plant medicine and having plant medicine experiences. And I'm curious if you've had any of those, if you're open to sharing that. Obviously, we can edit anything out you're not willing to share. But I'm curious if that's come into your universe, or if that's something that you've had any experience with, or something that you're looking to have experience with eventually.
Yeah. So I had my first experience outside of just, I'm from Colorado, so Mary Jane is everywhere.
Yeah.
Like actual intentional plant medicine for me was with ayahuasca. And it was a very radical, life-changing experience with me leaving somebody I was with and kind of just in this place of about ready to launch my third business. really just, I love what I'm doing, but it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. And competing in CrossFit and just all of it. I guess it's been about 4 years ago by now. And I remember just thinking, what do I want out of this? And the message was so clear. It was like, you need to love yourself for the first time in your life. And I had a very intense experience where, it was the first time I ever probably let go of control ever. I mean, I just was like, oh shit, this is happening. And if I do not let this happen, it will be miserable. And it was like, I felt like I was going through birth. Like it was like that intense of a let go of a process. And then once it happened, it was like, magic all around me, and asking my guide, who is so present, it's just, what is this? And she was like, this is you. You are magical. And it was this shift of, oh my gosh, like I've never seen myself in that way. And the most powerful piece was actually having my mom show up. And I actually, you guys, I'm so glad you asked this, because it's hard to explain this to people that aren't familiar with this, what can happen and how powerful it is. But I basically I went into my mom's body, and she was looking at me, and I felt every single piece of love that she felt for me. And it was so, I cried even just thinking about it, because it was the first time I realized, like, wow, people feel that way about me. Why, if I could take a fifth of that, a tenth of that, a millionth of that, and feel that about myself, and not be so damn hard on myself, and have compassion for myself. Like, what could that look like? And, immediately after, the next morning, calling her and telling her, and at first she was like Googling, like, what did you just do? But also, yeah, how do you spell that? But also she started crying, because she's like, I asked for that to happen. Like, I, in her own way, just desperate for, I've always just, that's who I've been since I was young. I want more, and it's never enough, and I can do better. And, it was just so cool to have that. And it's definitely something I have to revisit when I get into that perfectionist, it's not good enough tendency. But there's a balance, right? Because there's a moment, I finally have felt this, like, yes, there's points where it's like, oh my gosh, that's good enough. Yes, like the gym, I'm like, we got it. And I don't think I ever would have felt that had it not been for some of those experiences of it's kind of reaching for the sky, and you're on the top of the mountain, and then it's another mountain and another mountain. And so for me, it's understanding there's definitely this like sense of it's not there yet, and I have to listen to that, but making sure that it doesn't showcase, or for me, it doesn't tie into the value that I feel of myself. It's just a timing thing.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't, because you're not there yet doesn't mean anything about you. Yeah. And I think that's, it's funny, because I had a very, very similar experience, my first or second ceremony with my mom. And my mom and dad split up when I was like 4, and I've spent maybe 1 year of my life with her, so she's been pretty absent from a lot of my life. But I mean, we have a relationship, but it's just not, kind of what your normal father-son or mother-son relationship is like. And I had that experience of like, oh, wow. Even though she wasn't really present in my life, like the love that she feels for me and has felt for me since like literally the moment of my conception, which is what I got to kind of experience in a weird way, was like, you're like, boop, here you are, in this, you're welcome to the human experience. And this person who's growing you loves you more than anything you could ever imagine.
Wow.
And that lasts. And I, emailed my mom like a couple days later, and just laid it out for her in an email. And she was like, similar kind of thing. She's like, wait, you were doing what? Okay, well, thank you. And she's like, I just mind blown, because, and I, and I never really thought about it from this perspective before of, how she must have felt not being present in my life, and wondering if I knew how much she loved me, and like like ultimately wondering if I really knew the depth of love that she had for me,
Wow.
And so it was cool to be able to tell her that I did,
Yes.
and it's funny that it took, a plant to get you there, but hey, whatever it takes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing stuff.
I love it.
So I feel like this is a good place to wind down. That was just really beautiful. And it's been so fun connecting with you, Emily. I feel like, honestly, you are such a soul sister. And I hope that we get to spend some time in person, because I just really do love what you're putting out there and love what you stand for. And as a final sort of, closure to this, I wonder if you would just offer our listeners 3 things that they could start doing today to feel that sense of love for themselves, to feel that bigger connection and that bigger sense of you are enough.
I think number 1, get out of your head and into your body, knowing movement and dopamine and all the things that we have to do as humans, and we just do less and less of it every year. It's the best way to access some ability to like see yourself in a different light. And that's really what helped me from day one. Like, I don't know what to do, but if I move, I'll be okay. And it feels so good. And it's not go crush a workout and have something perfectly planned and Instagrammable. It's just go on a walk, get outside, get in the sunshine, go barefoot, just move your body in a way that feels organic and natural, and most importantly, blissful. And I think also, kind of one thing I talk about with my clients and how we tend to overthink it and never feel like it's enough and feel very far from our goal is very simply take kind of one thing, and what is that one thing you're going to commit to? And there's something that happens when you actually stick to a commitment. It's kind of like the first time I said no to a cookie, and then the second time I said no to a cookie, it was like, oh my God, I'm a badass. I can do this. I am amazing. I wanted to scream it. Like, it was like, I didn't even know I had that ability. I always was the one that said yes. So like, what is that one thing you will commit to every single day? And it could just say, I'm going to commit in your audience, who knows where they're at and where they're going. But for some of my people, it's saying no to fast food and driving by it, and saying no to soda. And it's not all of these things I'm saying, it's one of them. It's just pick one thing. And it could be, I'm going to eat 3 cups of vegetables a day, or I'm going to drink X amount of water. And it's just not so big of overhaul. It's just like, yes, I did it. And every time you do it, you give yourself this like mental butt slap, like, yes, on the shit. Like, even though it's so silly and, small, it's not small. That's how success and change happens. So it's kind of my way of being like, if this all goes to shit today, I did that one thing and I am okay. I'm good. I have that centering that's really helpful for me. I think the third thing, really kind of to tap into it, is, I'm such a water person. And like, when all else fails and, everything is wrong and I don't know really what to do for the day, or I feel like I did nothing, or I'm overwhelmed and I have like such a long list. And it could also be, the meditation or practice that you guys do, but also like, it's very amazing for me to be in, like, it's either baths or saunas. It's like this moment of, it's kind of this extreme heat and warmth and submersion. And I feel like water moves energy, and it just is a way, even if it's like 30 minutes of just, I don't have time and space for this, but I'm making time and space for this. I always like come out a new person, and it just kind of forces me to get off my phone, get off my laptop. Although I will say that I have like a laptop holder for the bathtub. So I'm guilty of some of those too. Some of those days that just have to happen. But for me, it's like, those are kind of my go-tos. I think when it comes to like, how do I come back home to myself? Those are the 3 things that I always do.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We really love this, love connecting, and it was so fun. And I hope we get to do it again. And in the meantime, tell folks where they can find you, anything that you've got coming up that you want to make sure listeners know about, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I am in Denver, Colorado. So if you ever come to Denver, stop by the gym, Platform Strength. But for the most part, all of my things are online, and you can find me on emilyschromm.com, or my Instagram, Emily Schromm, or my YouTube, Emily Schromm. So that's kind of where everything lives, and you can learn more about the things I'm doing. And it's always something, we're kind of all over the place, but in a really fun way, hosting my first retreat in September. And I know. I was, you
Congrats.
guys are, I need some advice. I'm going to have a separate call for you guys.
For sure. Yeah, we've got you covered.
Yeah.
And where is it? Where's your first
here
retreat?
in Denver, and then we're going to Rocky Mountain National Park, which will be wonderful.
Ooh, beautiful.
And I think the last place, if you're a podcast listener, my podcast is Meathead Hippie, and I love I need to have both of you on. We'd be able to extend our conversation in such a fun way. So, Meathead Hippie is
awesome. We'd love it. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. And that's all she wrote, folks. I hope you guys got something out of that podcast. We certainly did.
Yes. And even more than getting something out of it, I hope you enjoyed it, because we really enjoyed it.
Joy is something you could get out of a podcast.
That's true. This is very true. We hope you got a lot of joy, information, and maybe an impact out of that. And
maybe an impact, yeah. And hopefully some motivation to go participate in this giveaway.
Absolutely. And check out coming this next weekend. That is Thursday. I'm going to look at the date exactly so you folks have it. Mark your calendars. Thursday the 16th through Sunday the 19th. We are going to be having a flash sale on our remaining retreat spaces in Montana and Costa Rica. And actually are going to even let you grab that off of the new Peru retreat that just wrapped up the early bird sale. So those 3 retreats, we're going to have a flash sale for those days only, where you can grab $200 off any of those retreat spaces. It is not available for Rhythmia, but everything else, you've got a chance to grab that Thursday through Sunday. So mark your calendars, make sure you're ready, and save some money.
Yeah, go over there and save some dollars.
Yes. If you've been thinking about any of those retreats, now's the time. It's time to get booking flights. It's time to get on with it. So yes, you can save that money and put it towards the cost of your flight if you so require a flight to get to that place. Or some cool shoes. Or an M-Pack if you don't actually win it. There's so many things to buy with that extra $200.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
You can direct message Vanessa on Instagram for a list of ideas of things you could spend that $200 on.
Yes, I have a list ready, locked, and loaded to go.
All right.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.